Good evening, everybody. Thank y'all for coming. I've asked Mr. Bradley to give the invocation this evening.
Let's pray together. Lord and Heavenly Father, we just come together tonight as a council and as citizens of Monroe to do the city's work, to give you the glory when it's needed, ask your help when it's needed, and just continue on as the things that we do. And we just ask you to be with us as we make these decisions, as we go forward, that all the things that we do would be in your will and we would follow your guidance as we go forward. We just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Call this meeting to order of the May 9th City Council of the City of Monroe. Let the record reflect that all members of council are present, and I need a motion for the approval of the agenda, please.
So moved.
I'm going to give that one to Mr. Boyce. Can I give you the second, Nathan? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the consent agenda for approval. This is the council minutes from April, the Planning Commission, Historic Preservation, Downtown Development Agency, CVB, and Urban Redevelopment Agency minutes from March. I need a motion for the approval of the consent agenda, please.
Move to approve.
I'll give Ms. Malcolm, and I think I heard Moesha say in a second.
Yes.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to our public forum, this is Georgia Public Works Week, and have a proclamation for Mr. Smith. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to the sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Georgia. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services cannot be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector. And whereas these individuals are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our city's transportation, water, wastewater, solid waste, stormwater, natural gas, telecommunications, electric transportation, and other structures and facilities essentials for our citizens. And whereas during the 63rd Annual Public Works Week, the state of Georgia encourages its citizens to learn about and understand the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. Now therefore, I, John S. Howard, Mayor of the City of Monroe, do hereby proclaim May 21st through 27th, 2023 as Public Works Week in Georgia, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Monroe, Georgia, to be affixed this 9th day of May in the year of our Lord, 2023. John S. Howard. Danny, thank you. Mr. Bailey? All right. Let him fight.
I was gonna take a minute. Roger Hillman, you attend a lot of these meetings and come to them. If you would, please, sir, stand up for just a second. He's one of the only public works, probably our only public that's in the crowd, and he comes, stays in touch. He was actually here for Volunteer Day on the Community Cleanup Day, so just thanks for being here, thanks for participating, thanks for being a part of everything and all that you do.
Thank you, Roger. And before we move on, I do want to say we have some young ladies from customer service in the back as well. And of course, we have some police officers here, and that's every month. But we just appreciate the work that all of you do to keep our city running and operating so smoothly. Moving to public comment. Gable Holder. Hey, Gable, how are you, man? Good. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name's Gable Holder. I'm here to speak tonight because this council is currently re-examining the alcohol ordinances, and our business, the factory at Walton Mill, has something we would like for you to consider. So our business is a special event venue at the old cotton mill on Broad Street. We opened in 2020, and we have about 70 events a year there at that venue. And as everybody knows, it's customary to serve alcohol at most weddings and a lot of the other events that we have. And right now, under the city's ordinances, we're not allowed to sell that alcohol. So either our customers bring it in themselves in which case they typically go definitely out of the city, but usually out of the county to purchase it. And then they bring it in. We do require that they use trained and certified servers, but in this instance, we feel like we lose a measure of control over the alcohol, frankly, that's served in our venue, because we're not the ones that are selling it. But yet we're tasked with overseeing that everyone behaves appropriately according to laws and so forth. People feel a little more entitled to do whatever they want when it's their alcohol that they've brought in with them. So another issue, of course, is that revenue that our business is creating is flowing to another jurisdiction, as well as the associated tax revenue. Currently, for us to qualify for a license to sell alcohol, we'd have to put in a full kitchen, like a restaurant kitchen, and then be licensed as an eating establishment. Our understanding is that policy is in place to prevent event venues from getting licensed and then sort of beginning to function as bars, basically. Well, we don't have any intent to be a bar or interest in that, but we also don't really have any interest in putting in a full kitchen and then maintaining that, being inspected and so forth. In contrast, the city of Lawrenceville does allow special event venues to sell the alcohol to their customers, but one thing that they do that may address the issue or the concern that we have here is that they just require that food be served at every event that alcohol is served at. So you can't just serve beer, there has to be a meal or food of some type. That might work here to address those concerns and then allow us to bring that, basically to capture that revenue. It's significant and it's important to our business. The current ordinance, the way it's set up, it doesn't decrease the amount of alcohol that's consumed at our venue, and neither would changing the ordinance to allow us to sell it increase the alcohol, the quantity of alcohol. It would just give us more control over things like, I feel like it would give us better control over keeping, underage and overconsumption and things like that in check. And it would also redirect that revenue back into a business that is here in Monroe and the tax revenue as well. So I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Holder. I appreciate you coming in. Ms. Geraldine Reed.
Hey, everyone.
Good evening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm here again tonight speaking out on affordable housing for our county, our town. I also would like to pass out some information that I have found out about affordable housing, like in Morgan County, how they just built affordable housing, like 1-bedroom, brand new apartment, 1 bedrooms, 500, 2 bedroom, 510, 3 bedroom, 620. So if I can pass these out.
Yes, ma'am.
So everybody can get one. And so I really want to say, like, actually, I don't know, but I think I do know that the city has a lot of land. And the information that I'm passing around that shows the affordable housing, and actually just want to see if y'all can invest in that. I spoke to the mayor in Morgan County this morning, and he said that he would find out who the builders were and share that information with me so I could have it for the next meeting. So since I'm here, and I spoke on this the last time, does anybody here have anything that they could suggest that we do? I mean, I think if we all on the same page of wanting to help everybody have affordable housing, then
Thank you.
this is a way to go. So do anybody have any questions for me?
Did they say how it was that they funded these apartments? Is there a combination of types of funding, or?
He didn't say, he just said he would, actually, he said he would set up a meeting with myself and the builders, and that he wanted them to give me all the information. So that's why I'm saying, I'll bring it back to the next meeting, bring the information back. I just know we gotta do something, and it's not gonna stop here. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Thank y'all.
Patsy Vincent. Well, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for coming. Lisa Anderson.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for coming.
I was here last month representing our Downtown Development Authority Board, and I'm here again to read to you a letter that our board has written. Mayor and Council, City of Monroe. The subject is Ordinance Section 636, Monroe Historic Downtown Entertainment District. Our request to let the ordinance stand as written. Dear Mayor and Council, we appreciate the city's long-standing support of the Downtown Development Authority and the partnership we have leveraged to make Monroe a destination with an award-winning downtown. It is our relationship to share vision for making Monroe great that sets us apart from other communities and is at the heart of our collective success. It is in this spirit of partnership that we implore you leave Ordinance Section 636, Monroe Historic Downtown Entertainment District, as drafted and unanimously approved. The Entertainment District Ordinance has been one of many important components of building a downtown culture and business base that is envied by communities across the state. The ordinance has attracted businesses to open here, and some rely on it as a key component of their operations. We respectfully request that no changes be made to the ordinance for the following reasons. Number one, no evidence of incidents or direct negative outcomes. The DDA is unaware of a single reported incident linked to the ordinance. At the last council meeting, it was reported that the city and police department were also unaware of any issues, safety or otherwise. We are unaware of any evidence that plastic cups allowed under the ordinance create alcoholics or cause drunk driving or encourage children to abuse alcohol. Number two, community representation. Elected officials are to serve and represent the wishes of their constituents and not their own. The opposition to the ordinance arose from concerns for morality by a single council member. Based on our conversations and interactions with citizens and businesses in the city, that viewpoint is not shared by the majority. We urge the council members to poll their constituents and listen to their stance on this issue before making a decision. Number three, responsibility for children. Whether or not this ordinance exists, children will see alcohol. It is the parents' job, not the city's, to teach children about responsible drinking or not drinking based on the family's beliefs. The government is not the church, and any attempt to make it so goes against the founding principles of our nation. Number four, direct impact of taking away rights. Removing the entertainment district ordinance will immediately cause at least one business to leave Monroe, or worse, close altogether. It will directly impact community events, including the car show, fall festival, Christmas parade, and others. It will also reduce profits to downtown restaurants. Taking drastic action which creates direct harm could generate legal liability for the city. Number five, cultural regression. Many of our DDA board members have lived in Monroe their entire lives, or at least 20-plus years. We have witnessed a wonderful rebirth of our city and a cultural shift that welcomes new citizens and businesses. The city made great efforts to keep its ordinances current and consistent with this transition. The Entertainment District Ordinance adoption was a progressive step that was carefully studied and adopted unanimously by you, the City Council. Clawing back this ordinance sends a message to our community and beyond that Monroe is moving back in time and that the elected representatives are not attuned with the wishes of the citizens they represent. This is not a climate conducive to attracting new businesses and citizens. Number 6, rights are rights. The gravity of other issues in our community should not be used to shame the DDA or others for speaking out against an injustice of any kind. Our city certainly has its challenges, and there are significant issues like affordable housing that must be addressed. The DDA did not start the conversation about the Entertainment District Ordinance or create the current controversy. However, when an ordinance that was written and approved to further our shared vision is threatened, we are compelled to speak out and advocate for the downtown businesses and residents that we serve. We are not asking for new rights to be granted, but that existing rights not be taken from our citizens without any justification. We respectfully request that you leave the Entertainment District Ordinance as approved. Let's refocus our efforts on building on the great success we started and sowing in our businesses and our citizens. Sincerely, DDA board members, and I have a letter that's been included in the minutes where I've signed and the other members support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I appreciate you coming in. Chris Collin. Thank you for coming, Chris. Thanks for having me. Yes, sir.
I wrote a long speech too, but I think Lisa covered most of that stuff. So I'm just going to speak from the heart here. I was here, this is the second city council meeting in a row I've come to talk about a plastic cup. And I just wanted to say, last city council meeting, I had to follow this young lady over here that came again to speak about affordable housing. And it was embarrassing to me that our attentions have been taken away from affordable housing and the fact that there's parts of our community that are living in the woods and they don't have food to eat. I want to challenge everyone that's on the city council to think about the things that we're bringing up and the tax dollars that we're spending and where we're putting our time and our effort into our community. And are we focusing things that maybe they're our personal beliefs and maybe they're right and maybe they're not. And I'm not here to judge anybody's personal beliefs. But I think as a community, we have an amazing opportunity right now to bridge the wealth gap of the haves and the have-nots in our community. And I feel like our intentions are misguided here. I spoke to a couple city council members about this, and restaurants are great advocates for bringing people up. I've had employees that work for me that started as dishwashers that make over $80,000 a year now running our restaurants. I spoke with Mr. Boyce on the phone the other day, and we were talking about the housing crisis, and he mentioned it's going to be tough for us to fix that on a local level. It's something that's happening nationally throughout, it's happening through the whole United States. It's affecting every race, every ethnicity, every religion, every community in the United States right now. But where we can affect it, and where the restaurants can help affect it, is we have very successful restaurants in this downtown area. We have, I have people working at all of our restaurants that come from every different community in this city. And I have people making over $20 an hour, which is a great livable wage. We really pride ourselves at our restaurants as far as paying livable wages to people. And there's other things that we can be doing as a community besides focusing on these little things. So tonight I ask again that we please put the ordinance to rest that we've been talking about and move on to focusing our efforts and our attentions to things that really matter in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Collin. Appreciate you coming in. Moving to business items, city administrator update, Logan.
All right, just a couple things here. I wanted to recognize our gas department, led by Rodney Middlebrooks, who's out at a conference right now, and Brian Pittman and their crew. They've done an excellent job over the past couple of years. They've won the Gas Authority's 2022 Marketing Excellence Award this past week, based on the highest customer growth. As you know, we've run over 20 some odd miles of new gas line throughout the county, mainly on the east side of the county and even into Morgan County. That has provided a lot of jobs, especially in agriculture, and also serving new homes as well. But they were recognized for their contributions to the gas industry here in Georgia. The long-awaited truck bypass, or the connector, Highway 83 connector, our utility guys have a pre-construction meeting on Monday with E.R. Snell and GDOT, so that is real life. It will be coming soon. And then the Friday night concert, great job by everybody, all the crews, Leanne, everybody that staffed it up. I pulled the data, and it looked like we had around 6,600 people between 4 p.m. and 11 p.m. Friday night. So that's a pretty strong showing, and I know Chris Collin had a little event over there as well. So all of that worked symbiotically, and I think everything was very successful from all accounts of the business owners.
Any questions for Logan? Hearing none, Mr. Bailey, Assistant City Administrator, please.
Thank you, sir. Conference call we had this morning with the Town Green company that's under construction. July 17th right now is their completion date that they're estimating. If you go by, they have a splash pad poured. Restroom facility is pretty much completely built. The amphitheater, they're working on curbing all week this week, so there'll be a few traffic delays. At the airport, the terminal building right now will probably be finished sometime mid to end of June. We did have a DOT inspection 2 weeks ago. They did a LiDAR survey, which grabs all of your obstructions, all of your things that are in potential conflict with height requirements of the airport. So we have a conference call scheduled next week to review what those are. We're going to go back through the removal of obstructions at the airport again that we did about 10, 12 years ago. So just kind of expect that. There will be some federal and state money that will be available because it's a safety issue at the state court. Matthews Park, we are adding parking to the backside. We're kind of tweaking what was there because of that rear pavilion that's going to help us out, just so people aren't having to walk all the way across the park to get there. We just thought that would be a better use of that area. Farmers Market's going every Saturday until October. Flower Festival is May 20th downtown. And our cleanup event on April 29th, I had mentioned earlier, we actually had 65 volunteers come in this time. We collected just a little over 750 pounds of trash. So it was a good day, good event, the biggest crowd we've ever had, probably by triple. So any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Are there any questions for Chris? Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Moving to Brian Thompson, Solar Power Purchase Contract Second Amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. We've revisited, this will be the second time we revisited this solar project with MEAG. This is the agreement, if you'll remember, where we are purchasing bulk power from a solar project in partnership with other cities. The problem is solar is becoming more and more expensive to construct, and the lifespan of the panels are running less and less. So this will push the price to up about $8 a megawatt hour, up to almost $38 a megawatt hour, which is still financially viable for the city. Gets much higher than this, we've got to have a serious discussion. So if they come back with another increase later on, we're going to have to sit down and decide whether we really want to be in this. But at this number, at this time span, it's still energy delivered, not energy capacity. So you're only charged with the kilowatt hours that actually that get on the transmission line. This is still, on average, cheaper than market power. And it's load that's there you can get on any sunny day. I'll take any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Thompson? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion to approve by Mr. Little. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second to Mr. Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Thank you, Brian.
you.
Moving to new business, Mr. Calendar, 1203 South Madison Avenue rezone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The request before City Council this evening is a rezone from the R2 district to R1A. The purpose of this rezone request is to allow the subdivision of the property. Currently, there are 2 single-family homes that exist on this property. It's been that way since prior to the 1972 adoption of your development regulations, so there's no ability for them to subdivide the property under your current ordinance unless they rezone the property to R1A. And the proposed lots under that zoning district meet all the requirements of the zoning ordinance. It's a fairly straightforward rezone. Planning Commission and staff recommended approval as submitted without any conditions. That's all that I have, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions for Mr. Calendar? Brad, wasn't this included when we talked about the scrape and rebuild program last year?
I don't recall this property being discussed.
No, not this specific property, but that area, that this is what we want.
Well,
In this case, he proposes to keep the 2 existing single-family residences there on the individual lots.
Okay.
yeah, these are
There's
being
not going to be, there's not going to be any demolition at all. He wants to be able to have the ability to sell those individually.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll declare this portion of the meeting open for public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to speak? I'm sorry, is the applicant here? How are you? Come on forward, please.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for coming in. Could you take your hat off, please? Is there anything you'd like to say, want, ask?
It's pretty straightforward, I think. Basically, we're just trying to subdivide the properties so that they are not maintained as multifamily, because I feel like it wouldn't really make sense to fix up the properties in that sense.
Right.
So we're subdividing them, keeping them single-family residences as they've been used as in the past, and then fixing them up to be livable dwellings.
Sounds great. Are there any questions? Thank you. We'll be back to you in just a second.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone here who'd like to speak against the rezone? Anyone else who'd like to speak for the rezone? I'll declare that portion of the meeting closed, and we'll be back to revisit in just a moment. New business application for spirituous liquors and beer and wine on-premise consumption. San Andreas Monroe LLC. Is the applicant here? You can probably stay right there. Is the application in order?
Yes, the application's in order, Mayor.
Okay. Are there any questions from anyone before I ask for a motion? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. Malcolm. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Garrett. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. You're good to go. Thank you for coming. I'll move to the appointment of the Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Probst?
yeah, so last month we had a little snafu in the agenda. We should have had Mark Hammis in the mix for the HPC appointment to take over Susan Brown. The sheet that was inserted was for Susan Sykes, so she got appointed to 2 different boards, and I don't think that was her intent. So we're asking that appointment be made for Mark.
Sounds perfect. I talked to Susan the next day. Congratulated her on both. She didn't know what I was talking about. I need a motion to appoint Mr. Hammis, Mr. Mark Hammis, for a 3-year term to expire on May 1st, 2026.
Move to appoint.
Tyler Gregory? Is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to give that one to Mr. Garrett. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Moving to the appeal of Brooklyn Commons Land Residential Development. Who wants it?
No,
We just need to see if the appellant is here. Brooklyn Commons, McKinley Homes, U.S. LLC.
Any representative from McKinley Homes, Brooklyn Commons?
There's nobody here. You have, a decision of your planning department has been appealed. The hearing has been set for today. It is now before you with no presentation. If you'd like to hear from your planning staff, you certainly can, but this appeal is before you under Section 14.1 of your development regs.
I do think we need to hear from planning staff. Brad, do you want this?
Sure, I can provide just a brief synopsis of the appeal. The decision that's been appealed before this council was the decision to, our decision as a staff to require the developer to install street trees and sidewalks in compliance with their development plan and their custom zoning. And they refused to comply with that at that point, basically. It's pretty simple. They do not wish to install those features in the right-of-way on lots that I would like to mention are alley loaded. So there's no impact to the lots themselves or access to those lots. These are improvements that would be in your right-of-way that would be dedicated to the city. And so that's why we're requiring them to be done up front before dedication so that all utilities are not impacted in a negative manner. It's pretty straightforward.
Thank you. I guess I'll entertain a motion to.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to move to deny the appeal, and I want to make a comment about it. As I understand it, the standard for review is abuse of discretion. The ordinances for development grant the discretion to the planning department to make these decisions. The Brooklyn folks initially skipped this step. They went directly to court, filed a lawsuit. They got thrown out of court because they had skipped this step. They obviously don't care much about it. So I don't think there's been an abuse of discretion. I believe that the planning department acted appropriately, and so therefore I move to deny the appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. I appreciate your commentary, Mr. Dickinson. I'm also frustrated with the fact that they're wasting time and money. Moving to the rezone of 1203 South Madison Avenue, I'll open the floor to council members only for discussion and/or action.
I move to approve the rezone.
Second.
Mr. Dickinson to approve the rezone at 1203 South Madison Avenue from R2 to R1A. I have a second by Mr. Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Mr. Probst, intergovernmental agreement with Walton County and City of Loganville for aerial photometrics.
Thank you, Mayor. This is probably the third contract I think we've done with Walton County and Loganville. Basically what happens is the tax assessors orders these flyovers, ortho-rectified flyovers, and they get a better visual of what's on the ground, and they can make better assessment determinations, so they're not guessing as much. So really, it should streamline each and everybody's appeal process, should you have it, and make more accurate determination on the assessments. So this is a 3-year deal, and we split it up with the county, as you can see there, 60% of the county, 20% to Monroe, 20% to Loganville.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Logan? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Ms. Malcolm. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the traffic signal reimbursement at US 78, State Road 10, and Acock Avenue. Mr. Probst?
All right, so this one goes back a couple years. We didn't do it as part of an intergovernmental agreement just because it involved the county and then a potential developer, and we didn't really want to mix it up too much there and tie it too much to the development. But the developer went ahead and installed and paid for the traffic signal on 78 and Acock Avenue, and we kind of had a gentleman's agreement, if you will, that once it was installed and operational ahead of the bypass, that we would see about a partial split of reimbursement here. And if we did this, it would be $54,236.67, which we have budgeted in SPLOST funds. And this, again, this light's kind of critical for maintaining the traffic flow once number 1 apartments come online, but also in conjunction with the bypass and how it flows out from Unicia Drive to 78. It will be kind of I guess a check dam, so to speak, against the other major light right there.
Are there any questions for Logan? Kind of surprised I got it done so quickly. I mean, I know it's been a couple of years, but
They actually did do it very quickly.
Just one question. Is there any reason for that light to be operational today?
GDOT required it to be operational once we went through the whole process.
Which is kind of why I was surprised about the timing, so, yeah, it'll be a while. I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Crawford. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Thank you, everybody. Moving to the approval of July meeting schedule, Mr. Probst.
All right, so as you know, we have a busy July schedule full of meetings and conferences and whatnot. So this happens every so often where the stars don't align. So we are looking to move the July meeting date to Monday, July 17th at 6 p.m. right here.
Are there any questions for Logan? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Boyce?
Yep.
Motion by Mr. Garrett, a second by Mr. Boyce to approve moving the meeting to July 17th at 6 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Moving to discussion on affordable housing. Mr. Probst, you want to start this?
Well, obviously, there's a lot to discuss, but I believe some of you wanted it on as a general topic tonight. Really, what staff is trying to do is get your input as to the next steps that we need to take to move forward into not only just the general housing realm of planning and zoning, but workforce housing, affordable housing. How does that all work? So one of the things we've been doing in the background is working on a housing study. Sarah Shropshire back there has been heading that up for us, and we've been working with some of our partners. We need to know where we are, where do we stand before we know where to go. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, is taking that assessment demographically, based on income levels, what kind of housing stock we have presently, taking all of that into account before we move forward. So that's kind of where we are. And we also need this before we start leveraging other grant opportunities, whether it be state grants or federal grants, because we need to have some reference points. We need to have data to fill these grants out. So, there's probably a lot of grants out there. Some require matching funds, some require a lot of matching funds, some require little matching funds, some are rehab, some are full-scale build-outs, but those are usually in, your larger governments, larger organizations. So there's a lot to discuss tonight, and staff really just kind of needs your input on how we want to approach each one of these topics. And I don't think it can all be solved tonight, but just give us your 2 cents.
I do want to mention, Walton County Development Authority is also doing a study for our region. Rope Roberts, who's formerly with Georgia Power, is heading that up. Also, at the board meeting for Georgia Municipal last week, they discussed all the listening tours. I don't know which of you made it to the listening tour that we held at the Wayfair, but they took a poll from the room, and the poll in our listening session was affordable housing was the #1 topic. That's for our region. At every other site in the 11 regions, affordable housing was the #1 point of discussion. So it's not just a buzzword, it's affecting us all, but we also have some major issues that we have to face nationwide, economically, residentially as well, and I think you're gonna see a big push across the country, but I'd be willing to hear any solutions you may have, just any comments.
What do the city, how can the city actually help as far as developer trying to build affordable houses?
So if you remember a couple of years ago, we partnered with the Monroe Housing Authority, who then partnered with the Valdosta Housing Authority, strangely enough, who was working on Country Grove Apartments, right? So they got a LIHTC grant, low income tax credit housing grant for rehabilitation of an older unit apartment complex, okay? So the city acts as a conduit to help other organizations get that funding, okay? That's a small part. Each one of these are kind of baby steps. I don't think there's anything the city can go out and do and just outright create from scratch affordable housing or even workforce housing. I don't think we can do that. But I think we can find the right partners, the right development partners after we start setting the table. And I think we've done a pretty good job setting the table with our zoning and ordinance updates that we've done. Our comprehensive plan, there's a lot of thought put into that and about how it affected affordable and workforce housing and what our allowances are here. So in Georgia, we can't really go out and say, hey, we're going to dictate the price of homes or rent anywhere in the state or in the city. But what we can do is set that table. And that's what we're trying to do now. So the next phase 2, after we set the table, is then we find somebody to eat with, right? Who are we going to bring to dinner? Who can we invite that will do the products that we all want, that fit into our comp plan, that fit into our development patterns of the city, but also provide the affordable and workforce housing that we desire here. And so that's going to be the real challenge. Inside the perimeter in Atlanta, I think you're seeing a lot of that happen right now. People are seeing, hey, there's actually some money to be made there. Outside the perimeter, it's a little slower to happen. And that's just the nature of the beast, because this is a national and even global problem right now. So they're going to hit the bigger cities first before they ever start homing in on Monroe, if that makes sense.
Logan, if I could add a 1.5 to your setting the table and people coming to eat, one of the things that we have to do is we have to define who can be helped by what measure we take. So not everybody is going to be helped by Habitat, or not everybody is going to be able to be helped by workforce housing. Some people are going to need wraparound services on the lower end. Some people are going to need, just a place to move out of after you come out of college, what we would just consider something like a normal price rental, right? So we have to make sure that whenever we talk about affordable housing, we realize that we're talking about a whole mess of issues that actually need to be broken up into digestible pieces. So, even when we talk about that, it's like if you know somebody who's in a situation, we need to be able to say, okay, well, if you're in this situation, then these are the tools that we can use to help you find a home, or these are tools that we can use to help you be where you need to be. So it's not, just like you said, it's not one size fits all. So that's something else that we're gonna have to do as we go through this process, because there are different things that we can do for different levels of that.
If I could follow up on what Mr. Gregory says about that. I think we all just need to have an honest conversation with each other about what government can do and what government cannot do. And as has been said, there's no city in this country that doesn't have an issue with housing. I think we all recognize that. As Mr. Gregory says, these are different categories of things. And my concern as we go forward is I want to do something that's concentrated, focused, has very specific goals that are defined, and that those goals are attainable. And my concern is that if we just take on this global issue, then we don't move any needle on any of those elements very much. And we just end up essentially failing. In my view, I think the most important component for the health and well-being of the community is the workforce housing. And I think that of these different categories of housing issues, that's the one that is, it's not low-hanging fruit, but it's lower hanging than some of those other issues of like homelessness, where you get into the gigantic issue of the mental health crisis we have in this country. Everybody says we have the problem, but we haven't moved the needle one bit. And we see that every day with the chaos and the shootings and the craziness that's because of mental health. If we try to take that on, that's too big. So I think if we focus on one of these issues, workforce housing, because I have a lot of folks that work in my couple of businesses in Monroe, and they would love to live in the city, but they're having trouble finding a place to live that they can afford. So I think that one of the things that would help is if we had a task force, and it doesn't have to be just a city task force. I think we can do it in conjunction with the county, but we need citizen input. And I think we need input from the business community, because how are a bunch of government folks or housing advocates going to solve the workforce housing problem if we don't involve industry and business in the discussion? The other thing that I think we're all going to have to do is we're going to have to look at the model that we have and say, okay, this is 2023. Is this model still the way we want to do housing? And I'm very much a proponent of looking at options that would provide smaller houses, alternative housing in cluster developments, tiny homes, container homes, and I think we're going to have to do some multifamily developments. It's no one thing. We need a coherent plan that involves this whole community. And I think if one or two groups go off and try to do something, I just don't think it's going to succeed. Now, if we were as fortunate as our brother Andre Dickens in Atlanta, he just, if you haven't seen this, he's getting, $100 million out of the Woodruff and Whitehead foundations, and then they're going to bond another $100 million to take on their enormous problem. Is that going to solve it? No. Theirs are so big that even that won't solve it. Well, we don't have a Whitehead Foundation, and we don't have a Woodruff Foundation, so we've got to look at other options. But I think a task force is a good starting point, and we're going to be doing some work with our codes that I hope will make the city more amenable to some of these alternatives that I've talked about. So that's my 2 cents.
And I agree, government is not going to be the solution. Government's never the solution. But I also agree that, working with the businesses and working with individuals, that's what, and working with the Development Authority, that's what put the apartments out at Aycock Avenue for workforce there. So we're going to keep our eyes on that. Anything from this side? Mr. Little? So we're going to revisit this, I believe, in August at our
Yeah, so if we need to start up a task force or something of that nature, I think it's worth diving into it a little deeper at a housing retreat with you all. Probably August, September, if we can get some dates together from you all. Spend a good half day or so planning what the next steps really should be. We've heard from a lot of our citizens over the past couple months. So I think we take all these comments back and really digest it and come out with a plan of action instead of just more talk about it.
Yeah. And along with that, even perhaps a timeline that we could look at. Obviously it won't be set in stone, but for instance, at the Development Authority, with the housing study that's going on, when will that be complete? And then with the Development Authority, when will that go on? DCA just last week released $2,500,000 worth for infrastructure, for affordable housing, for workforce housing, and then also $1 million for construction. So, that once that first round goes through of people who have projects that are approved, because that happens in July, we'll be able to see a good idea of what kind of things the state's looking for and what kind of things they want to invest in, and then we can help plan a project kind of around that too. So those kind of things are happening nationwide, and I think with the door open to these kind of opportunities and some of the partners that we've recently made, I think we're gonna have the opportunities to be able to do something. But giving people an idea of hope and what is possible, I think is a good idea as well.
Right. And we have a Community Impact Day on May 27th. Community Impact Day and Housing Expo at the Walton County Boys and Girls Club, 405 Community Court, Monroe, Georgia. Free attendance and free food, children's activities, and childcare available. And at the very least, you might want a door prize. But this is the kind of thing, we've been putting this on for about 5 years. And this is your hand up. So please, I hope you will attend. Does anybody else have anything to say about that? Moving to discussion on the alcohol ordinance amendments. Logan?
All right, as we said last month, staff would give with legal counsel and start diving into some of the cleanup we needed, within the alcohol updates. It's been 5 years or so since we've done a full-on cleanup, and of course, it's probably time to do some more so that we ensure that, one, we're in compliance with Georgia law, two, we're being business-friendly still. So what I've brought before you is not the full-on ordinance cleanups. This is just a summary of changes, line by line, kind of bullet point format. There's still a couple question marks in there that maybe we can discuss. But what will happen is if you're okay with these ordinance changes, we can go back in the subsequent months and then bring those back for first and second readings for you. So Paul may have to jump in and out with me here, but what we did was go through the entire section 6 of the ordinance, amend and clarify the definition of microbrewery and microdistillery. We want to make sure that's legally in compliance. Amend the zoning ordinance sections to permit land use of microbrewery and microdistillery. Currently, our zoning ordinance is silent on that. We just want to make sure it comports to this section. Amend to increase the profit license fee to match standard on-site license fee. That can be anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000.
I'm sorry, can we go back to the first one, just since it's in definitions, just so we understand? If are there other things, I know later down here, and I know we'll talk about it, it gets down later, but just from a definition, this talks about later event facilities. But
yes.
Is that also something that needs to be under definitions of, like an event facility? What is the definition of event, those kind of, I guess what I'm wondering about under definitions, is some of these other things also need to be covered under definitions.
Right, section 6106 deals with special event venues.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me this is bullet point, sort of high level of some of the key topics that we identified. There's no question that once we get a first round of edits made, that we'll have to do some tweaking in other sections. So
Okay.
special event venues currently defined in section 6.1 probably will get, won't have to get changed because the sort of the problem with it, if you will, from the comment from the business owner tonight is down in a different section. It's in section 681 and 6106.
Right.
But there's no question that as we're going through some of these changes, we'll find other sections that need cleanup. So this is not a comprehensive list of every edit that would come forward.
I just wanted to be sure that, Mr. Holder's talk, I want to be sure we cover him, because I want to be sure the definitions are appropriate.
Yeah, we'll take care of all that.
Yeah, a lot of what he was talking about is covered in here.
Okay.
I can continue to go through these line by line if you want, but however you want to do this is kind of detailed. I sent it out the other day to you, however you want it.
Does anybody have any questions? Let me try this again. Does anybody have any, I didn't want to break their line of sight. Does anybody have any questions about what's in front of you? Have you read it? You want them to go through it point by point?
Well, I guess some of it we may need to, when he talks about the expansion of the entertainment district, or, you know, what does that really
Yeah.
mean? And
So-
do we cover the whole city? When we get to things like what Mr. Holder talked about, how do we define things? I'd like to hear those kind of discussions.
The special event items, pretty much everything he talked about is incorporated in these proposed changes. And we'll talk about that in more detail in the subsequent month, but if all that sounds okay, what he discussed, that's in here, number one. Number two, entertainment district boundaries, the feedback I was getting from several folks were maybe expanded to the mills, since that was left out. Maybe it's expanded just a little bit north. So if you remember, the purpose of the entertainment district boundaries was that it provided some economic benefit, additional economic benefit to restaurant areas around downtown. So what we could do in this round is leave it the same, expand it a little bit to areas like the mills, down South Madison, down South Broad a little bit. And then eventually what we could do is get it out to what we in the planning world would call a ped shed. So we'd have different nodes around the city that may have restaurant activity, perhaps out at, Hammond, perhaps out East Spring, somewhere in that area where instead of it drawing a huge swath across the canvas from downtown all the way out to those areas, it's just a concentric circle around those particular nodes, okay? That's kind of more in the long term, since there's not a lot of, I can't think of too many businesses that serve alcohol outside of the current entertainment district or potentially the mill area. That's the generality of that thinking.
Anybody
What
else?
about the time changes?
All right, time changes. That one was a big request. DDA even talked about it. Before, pouring was going on to 1:55 a.m., so we're talking about drawing it back to 12 or 12:30. Except in the case of New Year's, which that shall be 1:30 a.m.
My preference would be to cut it off at 12, but that's personal or whatever, my suggestion.
Nothing good ever happens after midnight.
That's right,
category.
as Chris Collin has said, and my mama said.
We just pulled it back to 12:30 because you're losing almost 2 hours of revenue, I guess, but I just wanted to make sure I got that feedback. 12 o'clock?
Well, by the time, you do 12:30, by the time people that's serving, by the time they've drank that, it's 1. So I think 12.
Not a problem.
Yeah, I think that's good.
And Mr. Bradley, just to go to this, what we've got envisioned so that y'all can have plenty of time to look at these changes, especially now since you've moved your July meeting to July 17, we could do first reading at July 17 and second reading at August. And that would give us time to go ahead and get them fully drafted, get them out to y'all for y'all to look at, and then provide feedback. I do know on the entertainment districts, that was more of a forward-thinking idea on additional ped sheds. That was after they got the code rewrite done and see if y'all wanted to do that. The rest of them are pretty cleaner cut and less sort of, other than 12 or 12:30, they're more of just cleanup issues, such as the Mr. Holder's issue that he raised, and then a few vague issues, just a few cleanups that we've discovered along the way as we've been living with this ordinance for about 5 years. But I'm happy to answer any questions you've got on any of these. The goal of this was to give law enforcement a little more teeth. So like, we didn't have a true public intox on the books right now. That'll fix that, get us a true public intox. We don't have a true open container violation ordinance in areas that are not included within the entertainment district. That'll get that on the books. That'll give law enforcement a little bit more teeth to enforce alcohol-related issues. And then, of course, pulling the time back to address the concern of Ms. Malcolm. So those are some of the things that we're tightening up, and then also just general cleanup. But I'll be happy to answer any questions you have on any of the specifics. But the one that you highlighted about what are the boundaries of the entertainment district, that's totally a legislative decision for you guys to decide. And in those discussions with staff, it was, well, we either just leave it like it is right now, or maybe we expand it a little bit more, kind of more in line with the DDA boundaries, because the DDA boundaries are a little bit bigger than the entertainment district boundaries. And we just put that in the sort of thinker of the code folks who are coming in to rewrite your zoning code over the next year or so, as do we want additional entertainment districts in various ped sheds around town, such as the Blaine Street development, such as the North Broad corridor, or others that I can't even think about right now that may help incentivize, revitalize, infill those particular areas as well. It's more of an economic driving tool.
Thank you, Paul.
And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm still not sure I understand about the event facilities. Yeah, I like everything Mr. Holder said.
We have it on the
Understand
list.
That's going to be covered here, but what I don't understand is, how do you do that without the unintended consequences that he also mentioned concerning just allowing a bar to open? You know, I guess I don't really understand the full ordinance today.
I'll be happy to get into those very specifics with you, but we fix it in section 681 and 6106. We have looked at Lawrenceville's particular special event venue, and we probably would, plagiarism is the highest form of flattery. We'd probably steal some of theirs, probably not all of it, because there's a couple of parts of it that probably don't implement very well. But to answer your question, if it is this council's desire to sort of change the way we wrote it in 2018 to allow special event venues to get their own pour license and sell, then that's the task that we will undertake, and we will work with staff to develop an ordinance that we believe meets your goals, and then we'll get a draft out to you, and then if you want to redline it or fine tune it, you certainly can. But it fixes it in section 681 and section 686, which are the locations where pour by beer and wine and pour by liquor are permitted. That's the specific section that gets fixed. And if we need to do some tweaking in the definitions or some additional regulations of special event venues, then we'll do that in, I believe, Article 7 of Chapter 6.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I'd like to offer a motion, if you're ready.
I think I'm ready.
I think we've heard from our business community, we've heard from the DDA, and with all due respect to that business community and the DDA, I think we need to establish in what direction we're going with this CUP ordinance. And so I'd offer a motion to approve the proposed alcohol amendments as discussed here for staff and legal counsel to proceed with the technical updates, and of course to those ordinances. And there will be time for us to have input over the course of the next 2.5 or 2 months. We'll have the first reading and then the second subsequent readings at the regular council meetings, but leaving intact all portions of the current alcohol ordinances contained within section 6-36 of the code.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Well, I have a question. I'm not sure I understand. I mean, aren't we kind of getting ahead of ourselves if we were voting on something tonight without actually seeing the draft? Or are we just saying?
We're just saying for them to proceed. Within my first part of the
Not to make any
motion.
changes immediately?
No.
Because I am
We're
dead
just
set
saying
against
proceed with
changes.
these items. We're asking them to proceed with ordinance cleanup in regards to all of
these
these
items.
things. And they will come back to us with a draft, and at that time, over the course of the next 2 months, it may be 3 months before we actually, complete the cleanup with our input, depending on how much it is. Then, at that point, we will bring it back for a first and second reading, but article or section 636 of the code will remain as it stands today.
Until this is done.
No,
No,
That is-
636 will stand.
it will stand outside of this cleanup.
Well, that means you're being specific about what you're trying to vote on. then.
Well, we're going to keep that portion being the city cups, whether it may go from 20 ounce to 16 ounce, but we are going to allow for pouring and for people to use the city cups and move from place to place within the downtown entertainment district.
We talking about it.
That's a
we talking
different
about
motion from what
That's
you just
definitely
said
a
with
different
this, so,
motion.
yeah.
That ain't the same motion. Are we talking about expanding the city boundaries?
That's not at this point. That's in,
But that's 636.
no, it's not.
No, it is.
No, it's not.
It is
It's basically saying they're gonna go.
continuing with the cup within the entertainment.
636 right here to me, yeah.
Right here, it says 636 to specify city cups from 20 ounce to 16 ounce.
All right, so there's cleanup involved in,
I didn't see that.
there's minor cleanup involved in 636, but as it stands today, 636 has already passed, so it already exists, right? So I think, point of clarification, Ms. Malcolm is saying,
Leave it in.
she just is charging staff and legal counsel to move forward with getting cleanup done that we'll all bring back to you in the subsequent months for first and second readings. Really doesn't have any bearing or change on section 636 or any of the other alcohol sections. You're only charging us with moving forward with some summary changes and
Definitions.
boundary
definitions and things like that will bring back, you can redline and then change or not change and adopt later on.
Correct.
It's already adopted.
The one in regards, on my review sheet, it's the one that it amend to specify city cups from 20 to 16, possible alternatives.
Let me see
And
if
I
I,
didn't see that.
sorry, let me see if I
may
can help.
need to make too much.
Excuse me, one second, folks. Mr. Rosenthal has the floor.
Well, I want to help y'all because I don't want this to be more complicated, and I see how maybe, lawyers are involved and it's getting complicated. I think really the intent here is, if you recall last month, we talked about this, that we need direction from y'all on which way you want to go. And I guess that's the intent of Ms. Malcolm's motion. And as to the issue, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Malcolm, as to the issue of leaving 636 intact, I think it's really sending a message to your community, and what I think I heard her say, the business community, is, does this council want to keep the entertainment district city cups as part of your alcohol ordinance or not? That would be essentially what your motion or your vote is. Yes, we want to do, or no, we do not. And with that vote or that message, not only does your city businesses know where y'all are heading, but your staff and your legal knows how we need to draft. Because at last month's meeting, there was discussion about we should remove the right or the city cup ordinance, right? The entertainment district cup ordinance. And then there was a lot of citizens that said, no, leave it. And so, I think that's really the essence of the direction you need to give to your staff and our office on how you want us to draft. Staff worked with our office to get a really comprehensive list of a lot of the changes we think we need to make. And what I think I heard the motion that's been seconded was, proceed forward with those updates. But then probably it does need to be a second motion. The second motion or the second issue is, does this council want the cup ordinance, for lack of a better word, to remain such that the entertainment district exists and folks can have cups with the city branding on it to be able to walk around with alcohol in them under the certain various regulations that may need to be tweaked, the boundaries may need to be changed, but do y'all want the cup ordinance to stay or not?
We got two different motions gonna be made then.
So I'll offer that to
You'll
be
do-
rescinded.
Okay.
I don't know.
Do you want to, you might make a first motion? and
Well,
then
we've got a motion on the floor with a
Yeah,
second.
but you can clarify the motion. If you want to
Okay,
keep it
I'll
as one
clarify.
motion, and then we
Part-
can make another one.
Part A of the motion to be that we direct city staff to proceed with a cleanup of those ordinances or in chapter 6 that we have before us, and come back to us with allowing suggestions, and then move forward to a first reading July 17th or August, depending on the pace.
Okay, thank you. And
All right, I will second that.
I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
No.
Motion carries with 1 against.
And I want to clarify my no vote. I fully support the cleanup process.
Gonna make another motion.
And I couldn't understand why that was a part of the same motion, but that's okay. I'm gonna vote no
Sorry,
because
I
I
failed
do
to
support the cleanup process and other things that Mr. Holder's saying and all that kind of stuff. I'm just opposed to the city logo.
That's
being on the cup.
that's the second part of the motion that she's about to make.
Yeah, that one, she gonna make a second motion.
The second motion is that we leave section 36 in regards to the city cup as it is written today, period.
And I
You have a
second
motion and a second by Mr. Dickinson.
I would move an amendment to that motion that the city logo be removed from the cup and that some other type of information be placed on it to identify it.
I have a motion and a second and a requested amendment. Discussion on
Not a
that.
requested amendment, it's a motion.
It's a motion to amend. We're going to have to vote on the
Okay, I'm
motion to
sorry. Thank you. I
amend.
need a
They
second.
need second.
I have a motion and a second to amend to have no logo on the cup at all, just no city logo.
Can we hear from our police chief on that?
Well, we have,
Wait, we'll have a motion and a second, then we'll have discussion. So the motion is to take the city logo off.
And to replace it with some other identifying information.
Okay, I have a motion to take the city logo off and replace it with some other identifying information that we'll discuss later, were that to change. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
all right, discussion. All right, I am opposed to taking the city logo off the cups, and this is why. When I initially heard that proposal, I thought, well, that's probably okay. We could just, all our different restaurants have our own names on the cups. We can get them cheaper than the city gets them. Of course, we have to pay the city for them and all of that. When I got to thinking about it a little more, I think if we do that, we're heading toward a situation that becomes less and less enforceable. So if the cup has the city logo on it, it's standardized. Everybody knows what it is. Any police officer can see the thing from yards away and know what it is. And we're not going to be putting our law enforcement in the position of going up to people wanting to look at their cups and then say, well, now let's see, is this cup from a place that's in the entertainment district, or is this a cup from Huey Magoo's or something that's outside the district? And what do we have and all that? It just, I think, leads to an unworkable mess and would encourage people to just bring their own cups with their own alcohol in them, which is the very thing we don't want. So,
He was specific about having a different logo on there. So
well,
what
I
logo?
understand that, but my point is, I think logically, it just makes sense to have one universal logo, which is the city name. And there are a number of municipalities that have copied exactly what we're doing with this. The most recent one is Covington. Starting May 4th, Covington is doing their test run of their downtown entertainment district modeled on the city of Monroe and the city of Rome, and I think two others, and those other two, I think, copied Monroe. So, again, like I said last time, if it ain't broke, let's don't fix it. So that's my reason for being opposed to the amendment. I just don't see that it does any good at all.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Any additional discussion on the amendment?
I 100% agree with Mr. Dickinson's stance on that.
All in favor of the amendment is Mr. Bradley has described, say aye. Have 1, 2, 3. All opposed, like sign.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you, Charlie. I just wanted to make sure.
Excuse me, we voting on
The amendment,
the logo.
right. 5 to 3, we dropped that.
I'm with
We are-
Mr. Bradley. If the issue
Okay,
is-
I'm sorry.
Mr. Bradley.
So you are for Mr. Bradley, you're for the amendment of not having the logo on it.
The logo does.
So it's 4-4, and now it's 5-4 against the amendment. And now we'll move to the motion. On I'm the fifth.
Well, my other
Math.
wife actually, she doesn't,
Well,
the
the amend-
logo's not
Issue.
an issue with her, the logo itself. So, I mean, I just wanted you to be
She's
clear on.
abstaining.
We'll take my fifth off then, and we'll leave your fifth. Okay.
The motion to amend the original motion has failed, is what I
Right.
believe we've got.
And so it's 5-3, back to the original motion. Any discussion about the original motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
No.
Motion carries with 1 against. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Moving to district items, let's go with Ms. Malcolm.
I have nothing at this time, thank you.
Nothing, Ms. Crawford.
No, not at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Boyce.
Not at this time.
Mr. Bradley.
No.
Mr. Garrett. No. Mr. Gregory.
I would like to say thanks to staff for setting the table and allowing us to make a lot of the improvements that we have made to our code and ordinances over time. It really has set us up in a good position to be able to capitalize on some of this stuff. So I'm thankful for that. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Tyler. Mr. Little. Mr. Dickinson.
Nothing further.
Thank you. I have 3 things. One, please don't forget Community Impact Day, May 27th. 2, in the Walton Tribune from Saturday, Sunday, May 6th and 7th. There's a sweet lady right here on page A2 named Kelly Watts. Was named Teacher of the Year at George Walton Academy. So if you would please take that to her. It's the only questionable decision she's made. And I do want to say, start this by saying Facebook. Oh, Facebook. I got a note passed to me last week that a person had said the mayor met with people from Davis Street and Magnolia and a couple of other neighborhoods and said that I'm going to tear down their apartments, and I am going to make sure that the rent is increased. And unless, it said at the mayor's office. It did not say it officially met with the mayor. So if folks met in my office and I was unaware, could have happened. And we know the story sells, right? We want dirty laundry. So it was finding a way to get people here from those communities riled up.
Well,
Clearly.
Mr. Mayor, I live on Davis Street, and I'm not going to let you do that. End of discussion. Not happening.
As if I could. But just the fact is, if you see something that looks completely outrageous, it probably is. And if you have any questions about it, call me, call one of your councilmen. They know that kind of meeting, number one, doesn't happen. And number two, would be completely fabricated. So I just wanted to address that. Now, I do need a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Malcolm and a second by Mr. Garrett. All in favor? All opposed, like sign? Motion carries, that passes. Executive session in just about 5 minutes.